Schmoeville, we want you to be thinking outside the box a little bit. Here's what I want you guys to consider. The Schmoes Know YouTube channel has like 280-ish. I don't know why I'm guessing. I could obviously just look it up. I have a computer right in front of me, but someone will correct me in the comment section anyway. They have almost 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. When you translate that to the SK Plus YouTube channel, it's not even 30,000 of that. It's not even 10% of the Schmoes Know YouTube channel. When you then look at the Schmoeville Facebook group, it's half of that. So, we need to get more people involved in the conversation as far as SK Plus, because we're not the only show on here. We've got to support this up-and-coming podcast network. Jay and I do After Schmoe. We also do Sight and Sound. That's exclusively on the SK Plus YouTube channel. It is not on the Schmoes Know podcast feed, but we also have Schmoedown Rundown, hosted by our boys Aaron Turner, Frank Janish, and Brian Davids. We've got Don't Be a Beardo, which doesn't need any more plugs. We've got The Wanger Show. We have Outlaw Nation, Harloff Podcast. There's so much stuff going on. I feel like the conversation is just beginning. So if you know people that are in Schmoeville, and I'm not talking about the Facebook page, I'm talking about fans of Schmoes Know that may or may not be in the Facebook group, make sure that you're talking to them about this podcast network. Make sure that you're talking to them about subscribing to this SK Plus YouTube channel, because it's very important. People like Jay and I are trying to get these shows as big as they can be, and we want this Schmoes Know podcast network to be huge. It might not ever be as big as Schmoes Know, and that's fine, but we want it to be something substantial, and we think there's a lot of potential here. So definitely think about how you can help and how you can contribute to this up-and-coming podcast network. Jaye Williams, do you have anything on that topic?
Not really. Make sure you guys are rating and reviewing and commenting on iTunes. Even if you don't listen on iTunes, even if you're on YouTube, go ahead and do that. That really helps out all the content on the Schmoes Know feed. What it does is it sort of helps the algorithm. It helps people find this content, and that would be fantastic.
Do you want to talk about Pre-Schmoe for a second?
I do want to talk about Pre-Schmoe for a second. Look, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's hopped on to the Schmoeville Facebook group and watched us every single Wednesday, 45 minutes before the live show starts. And even though the time will be changing, we're still going to be doing that 45 minutes before the live show starts, and we have a good time. We get to talk about everything that we pretty much don't get to talk about here. We get to do a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, answer some questions, get involved in communication with people. But this week was a little rough this time. You got to be on your second ever Pre-Schmoe. It's something that you are looking forward to. It's something that I'm sure you were counting down the days to be on with myself, with everybody else. And for everybody that did watch, that's great. But there's a lot of people that aren't watching, and I think it's important to discuss what happened this week here on After Schmoe. So let me just say this. This might be the last one that we ever do, because we might be fired by Kristian Harloff. Hell, even Brent might give us some notes on this one. What happened was this was an absolute shit show. The first thing that happened was my camera, my webcam. Typically, I either do it on my webcam or I do it on my phone. I decided, because there were two of us this time, I was going to go directly to the webcam and use our microphones. I don't know if it was a bad internet connection or if it was just some sort of gremlins inside my my computer itself, but it just wasn't working very well. So we had to stop about 30 minutes into it. And I decided that I was going to switch to my phone. And that worked great. It worked great. And all of a sudden, I noticed a friend of mine named Garrett Ham commented on the video. And I thought, that's strange. Garrett's never told me he was in Schmoeville, but that's cool. It's cool that he joined. Maybe he found out that I was doing this. started doing it, noticed the views were lower than normal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I realized that because my cousin, who has no business seeing this, no business even knowing what Schmoes Know is, started watching the video, and I realized that I had posted Pre-Schmoe to my own personal Facebook page. Now, the issue with this is I don't even use my Facebook page. The only thing I use it for is to be active for Sight and Sound and active for Schmoeville. And anytime I post anything, it's just a reminder that people that I know in my life that I don't want to know that I'm alive, it reminds them that I'm alive, and then they want to ask me questions about things. So they got a little...
I love how they came in, maybe for the first time in weeks, months, whatever, into your life socially, and without any context, heard us talking about driving to Burbank to get in an argument with someone named Josh Macuga.
Exactly. Yeah. Josh Macuga. Yeah, so I stopped that and I started back in the Schmoeville Facebook group, and it was great. Now, the real problem here, the underlying issue, is that I had planned to do this giveaway this week. I had promoted it. My whole goal was to drive more people to Pre-Schmoe this week. And what a terrible idea, because it was the worst one. I'm sure somebody for the first time was like, what the hell is this? It was stopping. It was starting. It is what it is. If there has ever been a better commercial or advertisement for you to please go to sightsoundpod.com and buy our shirts so that we can be a better podcast and create better content for you, it was Pre-Schmoe this week. Kristian Harloff will not approve our funding for better equipment, and the result was what you saw last night. It's also the dogs that bark in the background. My goal is for you guys to buy t-shirts so that this will never happen again. Ryan Snelling, what are your thoughts?
Another thing that he won't approve is that this segment is going on 7 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the intro song yet.
That's partially your fault, because you caught me off guard, didn't think we were going to be doing this.
We had a specific discussion before hitting record that we were going to discuss the Pre-Schmoe incident.
But see, I pay attention to Brett Sheridan and Kristian Harloff's notes. They specifically said, get into the discussion after the show started. But that's fine. It is what it is.
Welcome to After Schmoe, your favorite after show for the Schmoes Know Show. My name is Ryan Snelling.
And my name is Jaye Williams. Welcome to a very special episode of After Schmoe, where we have technical difficulties that continue on into this podcast.
And no one will have any idea because we're recording straight to our own computers. Something that we figured out far before so many other podcasters, and I have no idea why. Why aren't you guys doing this? Anyway, I'm not going to go on that tangent. We opened up talking about the Schmoes Know YouTube and the podcast feed or whatever, or the SK Plus, excuse me. And this is sort of a conversation that I wanted to have on Pre-Schmoe. And this was sort of a reaction that we had based on a post I put out about Sight and Sound, basically asking for ideas of things that we can do, other shows that we might be able to do for Schmoeville. And basically I gave them a small pitch on Sight and Sound Weekly, and they took it weird. I thought the reactions were weird. It wasn't really what I wanted. They were mostly talking about changing Sight and Sound Weekly, which is just off limits. Like that's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking you, how do we change Sight and Sound Weekly? It's more of how do we do something in service of you for this particular podcast feed. And so people were saying, take out the music portion. Well, no, that's not what I'm going to do. But my pitch and my case was sort of that it's still a unique show to me, at least for the network. It's unique to the network, and I think we have a lot to offer. Our takes don't sound like the guys over at Collider. Again, we offer music, things that people don't talk about in the space. So my main question that I have, do these people in Schmoeville, do they take in anything else aside from Collider and Schmoes Know content? Like, I'm just curious.
We had this discussion. We had this discussion off air, and I'm fascinated by it myself. A lot of those comments were talking about how much content that they have to take in from Collider, from Schmoes Know, from SK Plus, you know, yada yada yada. But I mean, it's a lot of content. 100%. You experienced that firsthand, which is why we don't cover Collider here anymore, so to speak. Well, I never did really, but I mean, I listen to so many podcasts, and I have a job that allows me to do that, and that's fine. Everybody's situation is very, very different. But I am curious. I am curious as to if people are exposed to other types of podcasts. Like we talked about how there are NPR-style podcasts that are very regimented, and the other end of the spectrum is like a Fighter and the Kid or a Joe Rogan, where they go on for literally 3 hours talking about just whatever they want.
I just think it's funny, and I know that one of the comments that we had even last night on Pre-Schmoe, someone referenced the Fighter and the Kid, and I was like, okay, well maybe these guys do listen to other stuff, but the way people acted, and I'm not really judging, I'm not really criticizing, I'm just sort of fascinated, because I think you and I take in so much stuff in addition to Collider, and that's why I was just sort of fascinated by the subject, because it just seemed like people didn't want anything else, and that's what I was really curious about. But I mean, and this is something I wanted to address anyway. This is sort of an admission, because a lot of you suggested that we get you should be ashamed of yourself t-shirts, and I recently just made a video talking about the whole Rotten Tomatoes Memorial Day weekend box office kerfluffle, as Jaye Williams would say. Jay and I have so many influences outside of this space that we bring into After Schmoe, that we bring into Sight and Sound. Like everything that I just listed that I've done recently, it's sort of my I'm influenced by the Dan Le Batard show, which is the anti-sports show, and I get a lot from that because they have a lot of commentary on in something like After Schmoe and Sight and Sound. It's more commentary, and I've sort of absorbed a lot of their style. So I can't take credit for that. You should be ashamed of your self stuff, even though I think it's very funny. But like even you, Jay, I mean, you're new word to Collider, so everything that you have done before now has been influenced by something else, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Joe Rogan. I've talked about it before, but I've been listening almost since day one, essentially, almost 1,000 podcasts that he's done. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. And they're all like close to 3 hours. The Fighter and the Kid twice a week, sometimes more depending on what they're doing. Obviously, a ton of YouTube stuff. And also The Watch, Andy Greenwald and what's his name? Not Mike Ryan.
Chris
Ryan. Yeah, I always get his name wrong because it's basic. He's got a basic name. Shout out to all you basic name people out there. And it's just a wide variety of things, and then we kind of bring our own flavor too. And some of our jokes that we have on here, like for instance the flourish joke, that's something I think that might have started here, but we carried over to Sight and Sound. And then one of our non-After Schmoe listeners was like, "What the hell? Why did you mess up that word?" And it's a reminder that you kind of got to experience everything to be a part of some of the jokes. And that's why some of our favorite, we love all of our listeners, but some of our favorite listeners are the ones that do cross those boundaries. People like Christina, I mean, she even listens to Let's Talk Legion and stuff that we do, and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun.
So, but anyway, that was just something that I sort of thought about this past week. So I guess I haven't really taken a whole lot from that Facebook post, and I'm not even saying that that's not anybody's fault, really. I mean, I think for the most part you all did, or at least interpreted what I said, and took it your own way or whatever. But I felt like there was another like social commentary about fandom that I wanted to talk about. What else were we going to talk about on Pre-Schmoe last night? It was something that we never touched on, but it was part of the plan.
I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Honestly, don't remember. I mean, the most that I took away from that post itself was something I think we kind of knew, is that it is sort of we are sort of out on an island. for instance, like the Schmoedown Rundown guys, they do a great job. They get a lot of help from Collider, because the Schmoedown is on the Collider, and they do such a great job at doing that show. They get a lot of that cross promotion. I mean, we do a show about the live show, so that's sort of where we get most of our support. And Sight and Sound is just sort of its own little thing, you know. So right. I think we just have to do our part to educate people as much as possible, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, the last thing I'll say before we get into the live show is something that I posted about in the the Schmoeville Facebook page. Make sure that you click the notification bell in the SK Plus YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all of our shows as we come out, because I think it's gotten to a point where there's a show every single day, at least during the week. So make sure you're doing that so you can listen to Jay and I twice a week.
Should I go ahead and give away my my shirts that I was going to give away on Pre-Schmoe?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. So I did a giveaway on Pre-Schmoe, and all you had to do to enter was comment on the video either while we were doing it live or after the fact. Did you hear that car just drive by just now?
Yeah, I did. It's very loud.
Really loud. Anyways, probably a truck with bull testicles on the back. Regardless, here's the way I selected. Just so people know, I picked 2 random numbers. I think one of them was 30. I don't know exactly what the numbers were, and I counted 30 comments from the top, and whatever it was from the bottom, I counted those from the bottom. So the first winner of a Schmoes Know shirt is Linus Babcock.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Linus.
You have won a Schmoes Know shirt of your choice. You can DM us on Twitter or on Instagram, however you want to do that. Just get in touch with us so we can get your information. And the other winner, again, this is just completely by random, of a Sight and Sound shirt of your choice is Jen Kemp, randomly selected.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so she's going to get a free Sight and Sound shirt of your choice. So Jen, DM us on Twitter or Instagram, however you want to get a hold of us.
I knew a guy in college. He lived on my floor. His last name was Babcock, and we called him Babycock.
I don't have any input on that.
We're talking about Schmoes Know live show number 285, the Wonder Woman preview. At the main table, we were accompanied by, of course, Mark Ellis, Josh Macuga, Joelle Monique, and Ken Knapsack, with Chris Hartwell on the couch. You know what? We talked a lot about Macuga in Pre-Schmoe. We'll probably talk about him a lot more throughout this show here. But it was good to see him back. I have to admit it. It's been like a month or so, maybe 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks since we've seen him. So Macuga was actually a breath of fresh air, I thought, and it's always great to see Joelle back. And I watched the first half of this show live with you, and your girlfriend was also there. And I happened to just catch that she said she loves when Joelle is on, so I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Joelle was getting love on this podcast. Excuse me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think she was much needed on this episode, too, her bubbly personality. I'm going to give a one-word description of this episode describing the people and their attitudes on this episode. And that word is going to be spicy.
I was going to say spunky.
Everyone was very, very spicy. You could also say spiky. Everybody was had a little bit of like an edge to them. They're all had some annoyance to them. Even Ken was annoyed at a few things a few times. I don't remember exactly about what because I have a terrible memory. But regardless, it was an interesting episode. Let me ask you this: your overall view and opinion of the live show. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it?
I liked it. I didn't love it or hate it. I thought it was fine. That's sort of all I've got.
I actually had a great time watching this episode. Yes, we watched it live together. As soon as you left, my girlfriend said that she didn't want to watch anymore. That wasn't a commentary necessarily on watching the episode. It was just she kind of was like, you've been hogging the TV for an hour.
You didn't even have to say that on this podcast. Now you're going to make everyone over there self-conscious. Cobbster already is so tense after last night. You're gonna make them more tense.
It's fine. I was hogging the TV, and you know what? Sometimes it's not about you, Ryan Snelling. And I said, you know what? That's fine. And she turned on X-Files. I don't really care about the X-Files, but it's fine.
What a worse choice. I would much rather watch Schmoes Know.
I'm actually enjoying randomly just having the X-Files on in the background because I get to see all these random movie stars like on the show before they were big. Like last night, the episode had a cold open with Ryan Reynolds as like a teenager. Very strange. Very strange. There's one of those bloated pauses that we're going to be talking about in a little bit.
So we are?
Is that what they're called? What are they called? Are they called bloated pauses?
An elongated pause.
Whatever. They talked about that on the live show for a minute, and it spurred a discussion that I want to have with you on air.
Pause not. Okay, so we like to, when we get into the episode, we like to go over Jaye Williams' stream of consciousness notes that he takes throughout the show. So he's going to read them from top to bottom, rapid fire. Jaye Williams, what were your notes from live show 285?
Not as many as previous weeks, but that's okay because it's quality, just like the live show always is. Ken is dressed like a steakhouse waiter. Jesus, here we go with Macuga in sports. Fuck off, Macuga. Back off, Hartwell. Fuck Twin Peaks. I don't think trailer problem, I didn't put an S there, I don't think trailer problem is as big of a deal as they are making it out to be. Brett is saving the show. Quote, Brett is a gem. My girlfriend. I feel like I'm watching After Schmoe with the shitting on Kristian bits. Weird, no 30-minute break. Brett's comment about not everyone agreeing about movie opinions is something that should be spoken about at length. One of my biggest points since we started Sight and Sound. This game is a shit show, but I love it. Not the game, the shit show. And that's it. That's the end of my notes.
The Macuga thing I want to talk about, because we were joking around on Pre-Schmoe. Macuga is a headliner on After Schmoe anytime he appears. You have been getting on me. You call me a habitual naysayer. I had a rant about Macuga a few episodes back because I wanted him to step off of Brett, but you were kind of the middle child that was sort of defending both sides a little bit, and you wanted to make sure that I didn't go in with a negative attitude towards Macuga. I think almost right away the tables turned, and you were annoyed by Macuga more than I was.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like any good human being, I've had time to sit on my opinions and think about them and analyze them. And look, I would be a little bit of a hypocrite if I was just going to go on here and rant. Macuga should be ashamed of himself. I would be a hypocrite considering my message to one Kristian Harloff and other people out there when I was telling my side of the story about the Schmoedown reaction video that we did. You got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how their day has been, what their week or month has been like. We know that Josh Macuga is very stressed out. Right? Well, we don't know it, but he has a wedding he's planning. Also, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but he's very passionate about Pittsburgh, and the team that he supports is in the Stanley Cup Finals. He was wearing some sort of ring. I don't know if that's his actual wedding band that he's going to be wearing, but it was attached to his cell phone. But yeah, I got frustrated. I got defensive because I felt like he was going after Hartwell a little bit. He got a little bit spicy towards Mark, who is... We had a discussion about who the most lovable person on the podcast was. I think you're 100% right. It is Mark.
What?
100%.
Yeah. We argued about that when I said it was Mark.
Well, like any good human being and individual, I like to think about things a little bit more in depth, just like I said about Josh Macuga in this whole take. Look, I appreciate Josh Macuga, and I appreciate the fact that he doesn't really have that filter. If he gets annoyed about something, he's going to fucking tell you. And sometimes he's going to go off on his, I guess, boss, Mark. I don't know what that was about. I don't know why he decided to dig so deep. But again, kind of my whole thing with Brett, and I know Josh has a comedy background, but Mark will absolutely destroy you. He not only is he a professional comedian, I mean, this guy tours around the country. I don't know about tours, but he travels around the country performing stand-up comedy professionally. He is a regular at the Comedy Store. I mean, that's like I don't know, being on the Bulls with Michael Jordan also on the team, I guess. I don't know. That was a stupid sports reference.
He's a Luke Longley.
He is a Rally Fingers. What's his name? What's that guy's name?
I know Raleigh Fingers, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. Don't go up against Mark. I mean that is a cul-de-sac. All you're gonna do is turn right back around because it's not good.
This isn't even really a negative or positive towards Macuga. I don't even have to go on a rant. It wasn't that big of a deal. I do like to give him a hard time on the show, of course, but I do want to say, I thought the first half of the show, pretty much before Brett got there, Macuga just kind of took over. Like, you could tell.
I was about to say dominated. He kind of dominated the conversation.
You could tell that he hadn't been on in like 4 weeks because he was going after everything. And I don't even really mean in a negative way. I just felt like there were extended Josh Macuga takes. He had input on everything. And he was absolutely dominating that table for the first half. It was pretty interesting.
You have great physical impressions of both Josh Macuga and Emma Fife. I wish we were on video right now.
Yeah.
Please buy a shirt, sitesoundpod.com. And hopefully one day people... Do you think you could come up with physical... We know you're not the greatest at impressions. I think you're better than I am. But do you think you could do physical impressions of every single person on the Schmoes?
Maybe. I mean, I've picked up on all of their tics. So, like, I'm thinking about what all of the people do, but I haven't put them into practice for myself yet. So that's a whole other thing. And yes, I'll do my Emma Fife and my Macuga on Pre-Schmoe. They're very small things. It's, I can't go into this huge thing. The worst thing about impressions is I never know what the dialogue is. So I can never like go on a run with an impression. It's always a really quick thing. But yeah, they're mainly just faces that I've come up with so far that Macuga and Emma do. But yeah, I'll do them on Pre-Schmoe next time I'm on. But I don't know, if you want me to sort of develop impressions, I can probably do that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to see them. Just to sort of wrap up this whole Macuga at the start of the show thing. Again, just to go back to what I said about being hypocritical, I think I have to give Macuga a little bit of leeway, considering somebody else who I just absolutely love, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, who is Brett Sheridan. You know, he kind of was giving Kristian a hard time, so why can I get mad at Macuga for giving for giving Hartwell or Brett a hard time? But I think it's absolutely hilarious when Brett just completely goes off on Kristian for like a solid 3 to 5 minutes. I mean, we do the same thing. We talk about it all the time because he's not there, so he's sort of fair game in my opinion. But yeah,
I feel like we give Macuga shit and Kristian shit for two different reasons. Like, we give Kristian shit because we have a rapport with him. At least I communicate with him regularly. I know that he is listening. Whereas Macuga, we do it purposefully because we know he isn't listening and that someone else will show him what we said about him. So I think it's funny that we do that.
All right, let me ask you this question. Of everybody that's on the show or in the rotation, whatever you want to call it, who is the person that you just absolutely will not tolerate Macuga giving a hard time to, where you just draw the line and you say, enough is enough, I'm not even going to fake a rant, I just can't handle it anymore? Who is that individual for you?
I would say, well, it'd be multiple people. I don't think I want to hear... It depends. It depends, because I don't think he'd ever do it to Ellis. I mean, more because they're best friends. Like, I think if there are two best friends in that office aside from like Kristian and Mark, it would be Ellis and Macuga, because I mean, I've just heard how much they hang out with each other, especially over the years. But I don't think they would ever really reach beyond them just picking at each other because they're friends. I don't think I would be very protective if Macuga went after Mark Riley.
Okay. So Mark Riley's your guy. See, I was thinking more of a Joel or more of an RB3 because I think that's a good pick, but the Mark Riley Macuga thing, I mean, they work together. I feel like they probably have that type of relationship where they pick at each other regardless. But yeah, we know that Macuga and RB3 have sort of like a bromance going on. Well, I don't know. I feel like maybe Macuga is the one that instigates it, but RB3 doesn't really reciprocate it as much.
I feel like RB3 has more of a bromance with Finstock than I do Macuga. Yeah. I think that's a very one-sided relationship, Macuga and RB3.
Yeah, is Macuga the one that's like constantly courting RB3, but he just has no time for it at all?
Macuga befriends RB3 to affirm that he is like still hip with the young people. Maybe that's why he does it. He wants to try to stay involved with the young people, and that's why he goes after RB3 in that way.
Has Macuga been planning RB3's 21st birthday party for the last 2 years?
100%. Well, RB3's been a part of the show a little over a year, or about a year, but I guarantee Macuga has been planning that party ever since they met.
Fair enough. I can believe that.
Thank you. Anyway, we've talked a lot about Macuga. Let's transition. Actually, no. Let's stop at the Wangers for a second because there were a lot of great moments that came out from behind the Wanger table. The first thing I want to mention is that Berto did not take me up on my challenge. I said it last week, I wanted him to quit making that dumb face every time he is introduced and appears on camera. He didn't do it. He knows it's annoying me. So maybe I should act like it's the funniest thing ever. That way they discontinue that antic. But
well, I was going to speculate. Did he just not hear your call to action, or was he purposefully doing it to further annoy you? Because that sounds like something I would do.
I think that they might claim that's the reason, but I don't think that he actually knows I even said that last week on the show.
Of all three of the Wangers, besides I don't know if Cobbster's supposed to listen to us or not. I feel like he delegates that to RB3.
I think that he might listen specifically just for clips during his breaks, and even that's only like once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Maybe, I'm not sure, but I feel like if any of the three Wangers listen, it's Berto, because Cody's too busy. He's too busy pushing buttons or whatever he does for Collider.
I don't think Berto takes in any of the content on SK Plus or Collider video.
You know, we have a friend named Cody, and we always ask, we have this joke where we ask, what do you think Cody's doing right now? Because we have no idea what he does. I could apply that exact same thing to Berto. I have no idea what Berto, because I mean, he's always asking other people questions. What the hell does Berto do?
Yeah, that's a good point. Has Berto ever been a guest on any of the SK Plus shows?
I don't know. Should we do an After Schmoe special where we just do instead of Don't Be a Berto, Be a Berto, and we just do a Don't Be a Berto for Berto?
I don't know. We'll work on it off the air. Should this be an off-air conversation?
More on that later.
The other funny things that we got, the 10-second mic warning. Now, I understand why they do it. I thought this was pretty interesting. I like hearing about the behind-the-scenes stuff that never gets mentioned, the ways that they keep up this production and give it the value that it does. And I don't know. I thought this provided a couple of really funny moments at the end of both breaks. And so seeing Cody get frustrated was great because of all of the people we hear from him the least. So those were some great moments. And then did you have anything to say about that before I moved on to Cobbster?
Not really. I think Cody is the funniest in small doses just because he seems like he's constantly worked up about something. Like if he was on the mic all the time, I mean, you can sort of get this vibe from him via the Wanger show, but if he was on the mic all the time, I feel like his persona wouldn't be that different from Cobbster, just constantly actually I think he might be more pissed off and annoyed than Cobbster.
Maybe, but it's not on display as much as Cobbster's.
Right.
Like
he's under high pressure. Like he puts a lot of pressure on himself. I know this about Cody.
Yeah, I think he kind of explodes like a volcano. He only gets so many moments throughout the week to express himself, so he's very explosive when he comes out of the gate. But Cobbster has more time, so.
What does Ace do while he's back there? He seems like he's just watching other people push buttons.
Like, okay, here's my perception of what Ace did, particularly last night. So I would say that he refilled everyone's drinks during the break or when the camera wasn't on someone. And he was the person who took the game contestants in and out of the studio and brought them back in when it was time for them to come in. That's the only thing that I can come up with that Ace would have done last night. Now, RB3 right now is typing on the YouTube comment section to tell me everything that Ace did. I love it. I appreciate it. I'm just, speaking from my perspective. I'm not saying that Ace is worthless or anything like that. I just think it's funny to think about.
No, I think he's underutilized talent. I mean, look, unfortunately, we can't talk too much about Ace because Brent was on the show this week. And just by the way we talk about things, Brent is the one that gets most of our love. But regardless, I'll give you a little bit here.
Okay.
Ace is vastly underutilized on the show. I appreciate his opinions. I appreciate his take. We all know that Chris Hartwell swooped in and took Ace's spot because Ace was sort of the young guy,
the intellectual.
Yes, he was the young guy that was smarter that I think some of the old dogs were sort of weary of. Like maybe we shouldn't let him on the mic too much because he's much smarter than we are. But now Chris Hartwell with that dreamy look of himself, whatever, I can't talk today. He came in all of a sudden with these new videos. I'm sure Ace is sitting back there like, the fuck do I have to do to get my own videos on the Schmoes Know channel? Cue 30 people telling us that Ace has his very own YouTube channel. We know,
guys,
it's fine.
How did that get prompted? Oh yeah, last week we were just talking about hearing Ace's takes, and everyone has to be like, guys, Ace has his own YouTube channel. We know. We're talking about specifically about Schmoes Know. I'm also coming from a place where I don't follow Ace as much as other people because I'm not into anime. So I'm speaking as a guy who wants to hear Ace's take on the other things, like the movies, like the things that he was talking about last night with Wonder Woman. I want more of that on Schmoes Know, and everyone has to tell us that we know he has a YouTube channel. Okay, anyway. Actually, I'm going to save my bit on Cobbster because I'm going to combine the Cobbster stuff when we talk about the game. I think now would be a good time to break and do your history lesson if you want to set it up.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm so happy and pleased that I stumbled upon this particular clip because it relates directly to the story I told at the top of the show about the issues with Pre-Schmoe. We're not the only people who have ever podcasted to have not necessarily technical issues, but just on-air issues. When the show's live, things go wrong. In fact, Kristian and Mark are also guilty of it myself. And on, March 7th, on March 7th, 2013, Kristian was waiting to interview a director at South by Southwest. The director did not give him a number, so for whatever reason, he opened up the phone lines and they immediately were flooded. And so he just started to take random phone calls from people, hoping that he picked the right number for this interview. But it was just fan after fan after fan. And after about 4, he absolutely flipped out, and he was just like, I'm fucking done with this. I can't do this anymore. I'm just, fuck it. They didn't give me a number. And Mark absolutely lost it on Kristian and had this brilliant back and forth about being raw on air. It's fine. Don't let it be a big deal. And then for whatever reason, Kristian decided to flip the script and say, no, you know what?
Are you setting up the clip or are you explaining the clip?
I'm setting it up. It's only a 2-minute long clip, so it does need a little bit of setup. So just chill out. This is what the back and forth was like. Regardless, Mark had his take on the whole thing, and then Kristian fired back, and then they went back and forth with each other. Let's just get right into it. What do you think?
So I don't know if we're going to be able to get to these directors today because it's a little too tough.
We know Schmoeville.
We have all these
what I'm
calls
saying is
coming in.
that
I love how fast you've given up on this. You're like,
No,
do you know how many? One call, no.
I got all these calls coming in. I don't know who's who because we don't have any numbers for these fucking people. I'm not doing it.
Okay,
I'm laughing because you after 2 calls you were like, I'm done.
The board has been lighting up here.
Kristian looks like one of those girls on roller skates in the 1920s, just running around,
It is what it's
plugging
like.
stuff.
I got all these boards. I'm like, what's the number? I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta guess. I'm like taking all these
Now,
fucking
look,
calls.
the
There's no structure
point
to it.
I was going to make is that we can level with Schmoeville. Is that look, there's this festival called South by Southwest. There's a lot of movies. There's a lot of directors. They're all hanging out there. Basically, what you do at this festival is you go out in Austin and you get hammered and you talk about how great your movie was. So they were going to call in. We were going to have them. But you all know how that works out. You have a girl you're supposed to call sometime. You have a boy that's on the line that's waiting for Tiffany Smith to call. You have a couple cocktails. Something else happens. They didn't call.
Yeah.
Maybe they call. We can't answer it. Who gives a shit? We're the Schmoes.
That's right.
This is the Schmoes No Movies podcast. We don't need
You
guests.
are so worked
Wow,
up.
you are getting upset.
Wowza.
Kenny, here's what I think we should do.
How was that upset? That was
I just
passionate.
said worked up.
You know what? I meant
Worked up.
passion. I meant
Jesus.
passion. I apologize.
I'm going back to Nashville.
Face
F
is
you
red.
guys.
We need to figure out if we just send him an email or something to whoever.
We've been working on that all day, but Macuga's
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay.
This is the kind of stuff you talk about during the break, guys.
No.
Let's talk about some exciting
I want
film news.
Listen, that's the thing is, I want Schmoeville to be able to see this type of stuff. I want him to be on the inside with
We
us
just
too.
told him.
All right,
That's what I did when I was apparently getting
What
upset.
kind of noise was
and
that?
Not passionate.
Gas? Oh shit!
That was the noise that I make. Sometimes I make weird noises.
No, that was a
Whoa.
weird. That was like a nursing home Ovaltine fart right
Yeah.
there. That thing just like that thing just kind of crept out of nowhere. It's good to have you back, Mark. Thanks for coming back. To the podcast.
I think I might have like snotted on myself.
I don't know if Shuzi got more excited when you said you made the word noises or when Mark said you farted. I don't know which one was. Either one, he got excited.
Oh man, that clip was hilarious, Jay.
You haven't even heard it yet. Don't play our audience for fools.
All right, let's talk about Brett, because you said it out loud when we were watching we watched the first half of the live show together last night. You said it out loud. I made sure to put it in my notes. Wait, it's not in my notes. Where did I put it?
You tell me.
I don't know. What'd you say about Brett?
I just said
you
that
said
Brett
he
was saving
saved
the
the
show.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. My God, we talked a little bit about. There's several things I want to process here. For one, we love Brett. We love Brett to the future. Everybody knows that. We talked about it on Pre-Schmoe. You asked me what I thought Brett was going to score at Gran Torino, and I lowered the expectation a little bit. I think my guess was -30. Part of me thought that it wouldn't sit right with him. And obviously when we got his explanation, I can't take credit. I didn't call it entirely, but I did think his take on Gran Torino was fire. And this is based on something that Ellis has said on the live show a couple weeks. He said it to me personally when we recorded a show together last week. He talked about being confident in your movie opinions and being critical of Clint Eastwood as a director, and aside from American Sniper, being critical of Gran Torino as well is something that I'm not familiar with. Like, people just like Gran Torino. The fact that I thought it was crazy to hear somebody, and maybe this is just my problem because I haven't heard enough people talk about it. I thought it was crazy to hear that he didn't care much about it at all. It kind of seemed like he didn't like the fact that Clint Eastwood was too reminiscent of his own grandfather. The fact that it was like paint by numbers, which, okay, maybe I guess, or that it was predictable, I guess is the better word to use. I didn't feel that for myself, having seen the film, but I thought his take was fire because it was so unique, and I loved hearing it, and also loved the reaction too, because even though I was astounded by this, that this movie didn't really sit with him that well, no one else reacted that way. And so I don't know if that's more of a commentary on me as a person, or more of a commentary on them, that they were more understanding of it, I guess. And maybe I need to revisit the film for more perspective. But anyway, that was just my gut reaction at the time. But I thought that was fairly interesting. I don't know if you have anything to say about the review itself, but...
Yeah, it was funny because I think I've only seen that movie once, and I think I saw it in the theaters. And I was sort of understanding to what he was saying, that the story itself is pretty straightforward. Like, there's not a ton of twists and turns that you just don't see coming. But a lot of that movie is a lot of memorable lines, a lot of very reactionary things. You know, it's like, oh, I can't believe he's saying this, or I can't believe he's doing this. It's a little bit slapsticky at times, I think, just in that sense. So I was fascinated by that, but I've said it constantly. I say it all the time, that one of the things that impresses me the most about Collider and about Schmoes is how much room they give people to have differing opinions, and I appreciate that. And actually, I had it in my notes, and a little bit later, in their Wonder Woman discussion, Brett actually brought that same point of view up, that we do get it from time to time. We get some people disagreeing about things that are maybe a little bit more gray area films, where some people love it, some people hate it, but there's just not a lot of discussion with people. Like, you're not getting a whole lot of people on there heavily criticizing Star Wars. We talk about it a lot, and I think that is a commentary on the people in the space itself. And we've talked about the fact that the collective of people that take in movie content on YouTube, or just these movie personalities, movie news, that we get this collective consciousness, so to speak. And it is a little bit startling when you hear somebody just have this outright opposite opinion, but it's fascinating. It's always fascinating for me to hear these sort of discussions take place. And who would have thought that a Brett to the Future would bring up all of those like inner thoughts and inner monologues that I have with myself.
Yes, that's the thing that's so great about Brett to the Future, is that it's so it provides so much perspective, and not just in film criticism, but in life as well. Jay,
are we talking about Chris Hartwell or Brett? Because your statement blurred the lines between the two segments.
I don't know, but I really don't ever remember Pirates 2 being bad. So that's all I'm saying. I'm
actually
agree
with you.
I'm hearing a lot of Pirates talk. I haven't seen Pirates 2 in several years, to be fair, but I don't ever remember it being a problem. So...
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm actually not going to let you, I don't know if you're planning on it, but I'm not going to let you move on from Brett to the Future without discussing
I'm not.
this whole thing with Brett missing the first third of the show to hang pictures for Kristian. His rant, so to speak, his frustration with having to do that, and it's spilling over to his just general being frustrated with work and feeling tired and exhausted, was so hilarious. I could not stop laughing. I thought any minute, Kristian was going to emerge from, because we all know he's there. We all know he's there giving people, telling people what to do this, don't say this, plug Schmoe Down, Rundown, all this stuff. We know he's doing that. We know he's there. And I think it took so much for him. Did you actually catch when the camera cut back to Brett and he had to jump out of the way from the camera really quick? We know you're there. Just we know you're there. Just come out from behind the camera.
I loved how Brett, when he was voicing all of this, we kept seeing him look off camera. So I think that validates exactly what you're saying. That Brett, anytime Brett called out Kristian by name, I think Kristian was right there in the studio, because Brett seemed to be looking off camera an awful lot to his right, not in the direction of the Wanger table, but to his right. And I know that Brian Davids might have a commentary on that type of opinion, but I think that is exactly what was going on. Either that or Ace was getting him a cup of coffee. But
I have a theory. Going back to our whole debacle with the thing that may or may not have fallen in the studio, I think I finally know what that was to cause Brett to have so much of a reaction, a what the fuck moment. He saw Kristian leaving before the live show ended, and that's what caused him to be so surprised. Oh my God, Kristian's actually leaving? That's exactly what it was.
I was actually reminded of that moment, the thing that we played up previously on After Schmoe that led to a phone call that made a lot of you angry at me. Brett kind of did that again when Ellis left during the game. Ellis left as part of the team, and Brett had some very quick commentary about how Ellis fell on the way out the door, and then he eventually got up back again, and that Ellis was okay. Whether he meant to or not, that reminded me very much of that moment, and I'd like to think that he did that for us. But
Brett's entire commentary, Brett, you know what? Fuck it. Brett was fire on this episode. Fire.
Yeah. And you could tell that he was the only person that didn't have any pineapple cider, because he was on another level. When everyone else was a little spunky, a little spicy, he killed it on this episode.
Why is everyone so, like, is there a fruit racism towards pineapple in the Collider studio? I mean, at this point, I feel like everybody is having to secretly shield their fandom of pineapple.
I'm actually very over that conversation already, and I'm guilty of it because we talked about it a lot last week, but I'm very much over it. I do think it's a very funny coincidence that there's been 2 weeks have gone by where we've talked about pineapple cider, and it happens to coincide with the pineapple on pizza discussion. I do think it's funny that pineapple keeps getting brought up, but I don't really want to go there here, but yeah, just never drink that again before the show. How about that? I think Ellis learned his lesson.
Yeah, you can't mix too much sugar with your alcohol. It's not a good mixture.
Before we finish we can talk about the Wonder Woman preview for a second, and then we'll talk about the game. But did you have something you wanted to say? I felt like you had something to say about the topic of elongated silences. There was a 15 seconds of silence that I didn't know if they were going to pull off. That was a great bit. And yeah, I feel like you took it personally, because I'm someone who also appreciates his silences, Jay.
No, you're misinterpreting my whole take on that. Actually, this comes from Brett. Actually, when Brett came onto the show, they started talking about the comedic effect of silence and timing. You decided one day that you were going to start doing this thing where you pause and you give these silences. And I don't think it works. I don't think it works that well. That's just my take on it. That's it.
Because you have very singular. I don't really want to go into it right now, but your tastes are so singular when it comes to like taking in new media. You're only about your shows that you listen to, like Joe Rogan, only Fighter and the Kid. Anytime I bring up anything else to you, it has to be your idea. Like that's how you are, at least from my perspective. It has to be you that comes up with it for yourself. So when I say, Jay, why don't you watch Fargo? Oh, the show's irrelevant. But I'm waiting for the day.
That is a sociological phenomenon in general of just having too much access to media in general. I can assure you that's not the case. The fact of the matter is that in terms of podcasts with Joe Rogan and The Fighter and the Kid, I hate to tell you, but they're pretty big. They're pretty big podcasts. So
Sure.
I'm not the only person that listens to those, but I just don't want to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. That's
Okay,
it.
let's talk about. I do want to talk about this for a second because this is fascinating to me. Okay, the difference between me and you over the past couple of years, I have absorbed a lot of different shows. For example, I'm still somewhat new to Dan Le Batard. I'm brand new to Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'm obsessed with right now. I've taken in Joe Rogan and The Fighter and the Kid, things that you've introduced me to. So I'm kind of a sponge, whereas I'm willing and able to give all this stuff a chance and learn from it at my particular angle. You are the exact opposite. And
That's 100% not true. You have selective memory. In fact, the very show that we're doing right now is a result from your recommendation. I've watched Collider. I watched Schmoes based on your recommendation from that. I mean, that's essentially...
I think the difference is you used Collider to fill an empty hole in your life because you were jealous. At the time, you were jealous that there was this corner for movies and there wasn't this corner for music. And I remember you trying to get or even create this pocket of musical personalities on YouTube, and you wanted to reach out to all these other people to kind of start something up like this. And it didn't really go your way at the time, so
But
you
I
had
could
no
have,
choice.
I could just have easily gone to Screen Junkies. Is that not correct?
That's very true.
I could have also gone to a source of entertainment. Actually, in fact, The Watch in general, which is another podcast that we take in, is another good example of that. I mean, I started watching Marvel movies again because of a group text that we had that constantly reinforced the fact that they weren't, complete and utter trash, which is 100% fine too. It's just a selective memory based on the things that I haven't taken in. I mean, it could go on forever in terms of, there's numerous bands that I've talked about, but that's just not the case. I know that you take in things when you have the time to, or you're maybe lacking, when you're lacking music, for instance, you're more susceptible to take in recommendations for things. I'm not seeking new podcast content. I'm not seeking new motivational speakers. I listen to a number of individuals that I personally like and I personally enjoy. And the biggest difference is the whole don't be a dong theory, and that's at least give everything a chance and figure out if it's good for you or not. I've watched Gary Vaynerchuk numerous times. I actually haven't watched Fargo, and that's fair, but that's more of a joke more than anything else. I just haven't watched Fargo.
He's a lot more than a motivational speaker. Okay, we got off track a little bit. Do you have anything to say about the Wonder Woman preview? I mean, how much can we say about these guys talking about a movie other than we're excited?
Actually, quite a bit. I mean, I think it goes back to our whole discussion that we had last week that I don't necessarily want to rehash completely, but the fact that Wonder Woman is the big topic of discussion in the movie space. We've gotten quite a bit of it, wherever you decide to, hopefully it's at Collider, hopefully it's at Schmoes Know, wherever you want to take in this sort of movie discussion. We even talked about it on Sight and Sound. I do think it's fascinating that the difference of previewing a movie rather than reacting to something that's already come out. The fact that they got into more, again, sort of what we were just talking about, the sociological aspects of the Wonder Woman movie itself, all the controversy, the fact that it's projected not to do as great in the box office, that's the type of stuff I want. I'm not as interested necessarily to find out more about the movie that I'm going to see. I want to know more about some of the politics going on with the movie, everybody's takes on it, and that's sort of what we got. We got the box office projection game, which I'm fascinated with that stuff.
Oh, you like that?
I do. I appreciate it. I can appreciate that.
You can't do that with music, can you?
Fuck no. Like, what box office? How many? You can't even. I can't even make a joke about it. Like, how many T-shirts are they going to sell at their next show? No.
Okay, we're pushing an hour here. I wanted to talk about the game very quickly and sort of combine it with my commentary on Cobbster. I thought that Cobbster was hilarious because he seemed so tense, and he also seemed to be using the game as an outlet of his frustration, because how many times did he have to point out that most of these individuals skipped the pre-production meeting? That must drive him nuts. Someone who has a job to do, who has worked every day of the week to make sure that this show runs as smoothly as possible, and you have to wrangle like 12 people sometimes and make sure that they're involved in the meeting. He was and needs to continue to blow off steam. I think he could see a therapist. Maybe he could blow off some steam by drinking some pineapple cider or a can of Pacifico. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Maybe go to a concert and get your mosh on.
That's true. Maybe he needs to mosh, slam dance. It's a good call.
That's one of the questions I would ask on Don't Be a Jaybird or whatever my podcast would be. Were you a mosher in your concert going days?
We may never get the chance because Cobbster is very busy.
That's true. To your point about that whole thing, I actually appreciate it. I appreciate that Cobbster does, like to keep the show tight. It goes back again to the conversation we've had about the dynamic of, do you want a more structured show or do you want a show that's a little bit more freeform? It can go off the rails. I say that at least 2 people every week, at least bare minimum, should skip the meeting just to leave a little bit of a wild card in the deck. Just because that's what reminds me of what I love so much about the show, that it can be anything and that it is so much different, again, like we said earlier, from things that we already take in on Collider, is that yes, it can be structured in the fact that we have to do certain things on the show, but it can be freeform to where you can have Brett just go on a rant about hanging pictures for Kristian or talking about how it's Shetland Pony Day at Wrigley Field.
That was the quote of the night, and I feel like everyone in the studio glossed over it. We watched that moment separately, and I had already put it in my notes, and the fact that you texted me validated that was easily the best joke and funniest statement of the night. And I guarantee so many people listening to this right now don't even remember the quote that we're referencing, but it was amazing.
I agree. I actually want to talk about the quality of the game. I joked that the game was kind of a shit show, and I loved it. Not the game itself, but the shit show. I thought that was fantastic. But I actually did enjoy the game quite a bit, and I've been saying for a really long time that game shows in podcast format, and you can just see it by the success of the Schmoedown, is kind of like the uncharted territory. And I think there's so much success, but it's how do you do it the best way. One of my favorite things about this game, in contrast to something like the Schmoedown is reliant on an individual's knowledge. And I mean, it really does test how good you are at movie trivia. This has a little bit more of an unpredictability factor to it because, like we saw in the game, there are so many strategies. You can use movie references to get the answer, or you can just sort of do this other thing where you're putting clues together in word format to sort of puzzle piece your way to the answer. I like games like that because of the unpredictability factor. We got that comeback from Mark and Joel. I mean, I like shows that more of the everyday individual could compete in, as opposed to something that's as strictly skill-based as Schmoedown is. Nothing against Schmoedown. Schmoedown is an incredible achievement for Mark and Kristian, but it's just a different sort of thing that I think I could be successful at that game.
I think of all of the games I've ever seen them play on the live show, this type of game, watching it as a viewer, frustrated me more than anything because, I can admit I wouldn't be great at movie trivia. It's fun to watch people know more than you, I think. just more entertaining in that way. But when you play a game like this, you're playing a game that's on my level. And because I play catchphrase and that type of game, Taboo. I played it a lot in high school. I mean, at parties. I mean, that's something that I've done for years, and I'm very good at that type of game. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to handle watching it again, because I wanted to scream at the TV as to how well or how poorly people were explaining clues. And like,
it's tough. It's tough though.
It was so aggravating. It blew my mind that Emma Fyffe couldn't get Infinity Gauntlet, because I feel like Emma Fyffe would get
Both teams had trouble with that one.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I mean, I feel like there's Macuga did a great job. He even pulled in the real world road rules reference. Anyway,
he was so creative with that. I mean, he was great at it.
Like, the whole point is to just get people to say the word. They don't have to say it within the right context. So the people that are bringing up iPods when trying to get people to say Batpod, that is how you play the game. Some people are so dead set on getting them to say the word. Anyway, I could rant on that for hours, but you're not interested in hearing that. But anyway.
Well, I do want to point out two things with the game real quick. We have to talk about them. We can't just gloss over them. One, the bird noises from Berto. Love it. Reminds me of Drake. Two, we can't just gloss over the fact that the whole sound version of this, so you had the sound reference and the video or the image that was up. The sound thing, completely irrelevant. Like, that completely confused them, and let's just do away with that in this next go around. We don't need, like, it confused everybody, and I get it. They should have been at the production meeting, but you almost don't need that element of it. So let's just get rid of that next time. Let's just use the TV behind them.
Jay, that's for the podcast listeners that don't have the graphic in front of them.
What was this game called? Do we have a name for it?
I don't know, but there's a reason why they use the audio clues.
So we should address this next time on our new podcast. The I don't know, what would you call it? It's not Pictionary. What's this game called in real life?
It'd be like Catchphrase or Taboo.
Okay. On our new podcast, Catchphrase Rundown. Schmoe Phrase Rundown. That's our new podcast.
Let's do it. We need to open up a day on SK Plus. That way we can have a third podcast on the network.
See ya, Sight and Sound Weekly.
Okay, I think that about wraps it up, I think. It's a Shetland Pony Day at Wrigley Field, and we got to head out. But
I got to go meet Rally Fingers after this.
That's right. Jaye Williams, what do you need to plug? Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E. It's the same for both. Also, check out Sight and Sound on Instagram. I'm doing this new thing called Song of the Day. Basically, if you're looking for some music to listen to, and you're not going to listen to it because who likes to take recommendations from people? It's fucking stupid. You can go to @SightSoundPod on Twitter and Instagram and check out our story on there, or whatever that's called, and I will recommend you a song every single day. It's fun to do. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search for us. There might be a link in the description. I don't know. Ryan doesn't trust me to write the descriptions because there will probably be typos. And that's pretty much it. SightSoundPod.com. Buy your t-shirt so that we don't have another Pre-Schmoe issue.
And you can follow me on Twitter at WhatUpSnell and at all of the places that Jay just described. We're about to watch the finale of The Leftovers. We will be covering that on Sight and Sound TV on our own podcast feed, so make sure you subscribe and watch that finale with us. Not just a season finale, a series finale. You won't want to miss it. Well, you might if you haven't been following the show. But anyway, you might be watching Twin Peaks instead, which you should be ashamed of yourself if that is what you're doing over watching The Leftovers. Anyway, you can find us on the SK Plus YouTube channel. Please subscribe, and the Schmoes Know podcast feed as well, to make sure you're getting all that podcast network goodness. We will see you next time. Thank you.